and none of you are mages, unless the executor wishes to correct me. Ah, so mysterious and silent. But the Mortalitasi know how to pry answers from silence. Suffice to say, Suffice it to say, that we find places where the veil is thin, and and behind it the fate flows like a mighty river. In these places, our magic may bind spirits, as in only right and natural, and in doing so, guide the current of that river, so that it flows more to our liking. It is not nonsense, Dwarf. That your people are blind to magic does not remove its effect upon those worlds. There are others amongst the Mortalitati who do other work, the guides of the path, to shepherd the corpses, to mourn watch, to deal with magic gone ori. But those who do as I do, who bind the fate and the world beneath it to their will, we are truest mages, whatever those who question our methods might say, where they think we cannot have. It is in his understanding that we allowed a Tevinter mage to visit and perform a ritual. He came from House Danarius, saying that his master had met some misfortune. He asked for our help, that he might change this world for the better. The war against the Kunari, he said, had not gone well. And all know that the Antan invaded without permission of the other branches of the Kunari government. We had assumed this world hobbled them, but it appears the priests and workers were a moderating influence. Without them, the Antam have crushed the Tevinter opposition in the east. I fear everything. I fear everything east of Witherti- Virantium will be under their control. Will be under their control. Um, will be under will be under their control inside a year, and northern Antivia as well. Can you imagine the Antam in control of this land? They hate magic even more than the cowards in the south. Our great works, the magic of centuries, they would destroy it, judging us monsters as though they had any right. It is unacceptable. I will not answer to witless fools who cannot even see the demons I bind by my own will alone. I will not answer to you either, Elysian. When you can stand in the fate and turn the raw chaos to your own purpose through sheer force of will, then I will accept your opinions of whether my magic is safe or appropriate. The mage, the mage who came to us had a way to drive back to Antam. He would perform a ritual with our help directing the cause of the fate against Antam, so that every dream, every demon, every half-interested spirit would urge them back to the north, away from humanity. Their resolve would weaken, their invasion would crumble, and all would go back to the way it should be. It was a bold plan, un, unsubtle as Tevinter mages are wont to be, but attractive in its audacity. But attractive in its audacity. He brought him he brought him one of our ritual chambers, deep in the grand necropolis. Here, our greatest mages are prevented their bodies, now home to bound spirits who empower our rituals. The Tevinter mage brought slaves with him, and we thought nothing of it. He also brought what he said was an ancient elven artifact, taken from House Daenerys before it fell. When he opened the thick chest marked with the Carter's protective runes and drew it forth, we saw it clearly. An idol crafted from red lyrium, which seemed to show two lovers or a god mourning her sacrifice, depending on how it caught your fancy. It whispered in our minds when we saw it, but those of us gifted with magic hear such murmurs in our minds all the time, and it's nothing to us. A great cavern had been prepared. Arcane possessions ringed around us. Corpses of our greatest mages bound in ritual circles that kept the demon inside their bodies, safely leashed. We had all drunk lyrium. Without we could feel the magic pulse inside the ancient vault. The song host notes were ours to play. We knew our parts, and I, as one of the 12 mortalitati, brought forth my magic enhanced, enhanced it with the arcane possession, and focused it upon the idol the Tevinter mage had placed upon the ground before him. My part of the ritual was complex, as I was to fo- as I was so focused upon it that I did not at first realize the Tevinter mage was killing his slaves. I saw them lying on the ground in a trance in a circle around him. And then he had cut the throat of one of them, and then another, catching the blood of his victims on the idol as he made his way around the circle. I would, of course, have stopped him were it possible, but the ritual was already underway. To give up my bindings could have caused massive destruction, likely killing the slaves anyway. So it was that I could only continue my work and watch the distasteful business, wishing I could have stopped him. Then our power, plus the power of arcane possessions, plus the power of his slave lives, had all come to him. The Tevinter mage raised the idol before him, and I saw a spike of lyrium spring from the base of the idol, so that all at once it was not merely an idol, but a ritual blade. He slashed his own hand, and a wave of power pulsed through the cavern. It was as though we were we were the blood, and the cavern was the body, though through which it flowed, and we fell as all of us to the ground, our minds pulled into the raw chaos of the fate by the power of this ritual. All around us was all around us was lit in color, a dizzying array of the magic that makes up the world of spirits, and it swirled around the Tevinter mage, and his ritual knife as though he were the eye of a hurricane. Something huge trembled around us, a spirit so great that it shook parts of the fate, and I had always and I had always considered to be neutral, devoid of life. And high overhead, where the black city showed the sky, I heard a great booming roar. But before the Tevinter mage could complete his ritual, the Dreadwolf arrived. It was no elf, no mortal mage. It was a beast unlike any I ever seen, lupine in appearance, but the size of a high dragon with shaggy spiked hide and 6 burning eyes like a pride demon. And it came to us on wings of fire that resolved themselves into a horde of lesser demons as Dreadwolf landed us. You meddle, you meddle past your understanding, foolish mortal mages, and in doing so, you threaten all creation. The words battered us like storm winds, and the Dreadwolf's jaw closed upon the Tevinter mage, snapping him up in an instant as he screamed in terror. The lesser demons rushed down upon us, crackling with fire and lightning, and our ritual collapsed as we all drew upon our own magic to survive. You use my idol carelessly to vandalize the sea of dreams. Now feel the pain of all you have created. As once we were awake back in the cavern, and its walls shook and cracked, and then a rift of green light rent the ceiling open above us, and the demon that had accompanied the Dreadwolf burst into the world in righteousness fury, shining warriors and blades forged from the raw fate itself, and behind them, dimly visible through a crackling light, the shadow of the beast itself. From whose slavering jaws came the final words, roared not in anger, but with quiet contempt. This is moment. From this moment, should you ever bend spirit, then your life is mine. The hypocrisy almost made me laugh. The Dreadwolf from binding spirits, but why would these lesser demons attack us if not because the Dreadwolf bound them? They might have looked like spirits of valor or justice to the untrained eye, but I assure you, no kindly spirit would tear into us as these creatures did. I flung my magic at them, driving them back with words and blasts of raw power. My fellow mortalitasi fell around me. The Tevinter mage lay on the cavern floor, a withered husk surrounded by the slaves he had sacrificed in a bloody ritual. One of my fellow mortalitasi, a noble son, sprinted to the body. He seized the idol. Its lyrium blade was gone, retracted or shattered, I know not which, and flung it into the thick Carter chest that had bound its power before. He ran with it, leaving the rest of us to die, and I cursed his name and his cleverness. The rift closed, and the demons laid the Mortalitasi to waste. I ran with a few other survivors. I had to escape the demons, to warn the others, you see, so that they would not endanger anyone else. The demons blocked my path, as did the arcane possessions, the corpses of our great mages carrying powerful spirits. There were only two of us left, me and an old acquaintance. She wept inside me, and her stuff broken and useless as her old argum- arguments and pretty politics. A demon caught her from behind, its shining blade piercing her heart with a single clean blow. Her life flowed out beside me, and I was helpless to save her. Then the bodies of the sacrificed slaves twitched and shuddered as spirits found them, and a moment later they were on their feet, corpses driven by spirits, and they fell upon the demons and the arcane horrors, time to flee, giving me time to flee. The mourn watched, close-minded fools, questions later why the corpses would aid me, as though my good works were insufficient to draw compassionate spirits who might wish me protected, as though I were some common criminal binding spirits through blood magic, not the victim of the Dreadwolf himself. They returned with me, nevertheless ready to banish the demons. But they had already left. The arcane possessions had vacated, vacated the corpses as well, as had the sacrifices. We reinterred our honored dead and ended up sealing the caverns. We searched for the noble's son and the stolen idol, but he had fled into Tevinter, and with so much of the Imperium and chaos from the war, it was not safe for us to give chase. I fear it's I fear that it is where my knowledge ends. Whatever you know of of this mage, put it aside. Whether he is truly the Dreadwolf or elven myth elven myth, I cannot say. It is not uncommon for powerful spirits to be worshipped as gods, as the Avadu. But whatever fear the name of the Dreadwolf carries, he has earned. While we might visit the faith, it is his natural home, and the spirits there serve him gladly. The whisper in my dreams now, accusing me of crimes I never committed, and promise vengeance if my wards fail. A weaker mage would be dead already or mad, and as clear as a Dreadwolf's anger at what we had done, the Mortalitasi binding spirits he considered his own, the Tevinter mage using forbidden blood magic, was the feeling that we had disturbed his own work. He intends something for the fate, and if he wants the idol, then whatever he intends will be terrible. The assassin harrumphed as the curtain drew back, and Chada saw his hand go through his blade again. But it was only the servant returning with his coffee. He nodded at her, and she withdrew the curtain, crackling faintly with magic as it drew silence across the boundary at the top of the stairs. "This is useless," he snapped, and sipped his coffee with a grimace. I knew the elf was dangerous. Now he's a demon as well? Or has an alliance with a demon, Charter pointed out. During his attacks on the south, Corypheus allied himself with a fear demon as a way to trap the Grey Wardens. The Grey Wardens trapped themselves. The Grey Wardens trapped themselves. Solus? No, trapped themselves. The Grey Wardens trapped themselves. The bard murmured a hint of disapproval in his voice as he stirred his tea. Regardless, we know more than we did. He has begun whatever ritual he intends to use to restore the Elven Empire. he has begun whatever ritual he intends to use to restore the Elven Empire. Charter said. And he is aware of disruptions. The ritual involves the fate and it requires the idol in some way. The idol also reacts to the other lyrium, the mortalitasia. The idol also reacts to other lyrium, the mortalitasia. Perhaps he needs lyrium for his ritual, the normal blue or the strange new red one. The assassin folded his arms and sat back. We have enough problems without getting mixed up with the red lyrium, he growled. I told you, it's blighted, and blight is bad for business. He glared over the executor. And you've been happy to listen, but haven't offered anything of your own? What are we getting in trade? Before the executor could answer, the bard raised his hands. I believe I know where the mage carrying. I believe I know where the mage carrying the lyrium idol went next. Sylvia's plate. Allow me to continue its tale. Chada nodded, and the assassin harem again and gulped his coffee, taking that as permission for the bard to begin. The bard's tale. The war between Gaspard and Celine was a great disruption to my country. Expensive both in lives lost and coins spent. Since its resolution, those of my professional have spent much of our time traveling abroad in search of Elysian treasure thought or battered. Recently, I found myself asking to recover such a treasure, a ring that once belonged to Empress Celine herself, a gift from the precious Lady Mantilian before her untimely retirement. I had traced the ring across Thedas to the neutral city of Liriohin, Liriohin, where I had rumors of an accusation where enchanters' treasures from across the world were to be sold. I promised an invitation and arrived at a massive fortress guarded by a pair of massive golems, their stone marked with runes and crystal that glowed green as they explained my invasion. They waved me in, and I entered and made my way to the ballroom, where I found a crowd of the wealthy, influential gathered from all across Thedas. An Avar Agior laughed loudly at a Ravanian pirate captain's dirty joke. A soberly clad noble from Starkhaven glared at a non-Abron-haired elf, whose dagger gnod gave her away as an agent of the Canary spies, the Benhathras. A warden commander spoke with a woman who was wrapped and masked, but I passed to recognize the voice of Divine Victoria herself. All of them were watched by a figure who sat upon a chair large enough to be a throne, a withered, unmoving figure. I wish I would have taken from corpse, despite his finery had it not occasionally spoken by means of some magical artifact, to order a small boy to moisten its desiccated limbs. My orders were to purchase the ring if possible, or failing that, make contact with the buyer, speculate in exchange, by the other means. The, the auction would not begin for some hours, and I circled the floor listening and making idle conversation. I quickly learned the Abaddon elf was the only Ben Hathras agent present. This was giving me information to the others, and out of curiosity at the canary, the averse to magic, might want an auction such as these. I listened. The words were the canary language, which I know only trifling, but I heard her mention the Sicari curious. I followed the servants, a forgettable human man, as he left the earth. He descended down. He descended down flight of stairs, and I followed, pretending to be lost in my cups. And at the bottom of the stairs, the servant accosted me. A thin blade produced him his tonic, and I regrettably introduced him to my own blade, which was shorter than his, but still long enough to reach his heart and explode to lower floor. It quickly became clear that the bottom floor of the castle was intended of servants, with made it surprising to see heavily armored guards stomping through the hallway, watching for intruders. I had understood that the treasures to be occupied were upstairs in the great vault, but now began to suspect these something else had been kept down here for safety. I kept to the shadows and let the guards pass by, as my blade was not long enough to reach the bard. Finally, I found the other Ben Hathrat deep beneath the castle, in a tunnel that the auctioneer himself probably did not know existed. I smelled salt air farther down, and surmised that they led to the smuggler's cove, some hidden away into and out of the castle, but could not explore further as the canaries themselves were making preparations in my path. These were not humans or elves who had foolishly given themselves the canary cause. Those were canary themselves, tall and grey skinned, but lithe and fast where the Atom soldiers are bulky and strong. They carried no lanterns or torches, but held instead of metal rod and ending in glass bulb, inside of which light burned more brightly than any candle. They carried blades and the thick, heavy statues that canary use to store their explosive powder. As I watched, they appeared a pouch to a heavy iron door against the wall and stepped back. They were waiting for a wondered for that. And for what? And then I caught the strains of music from the upstairs of the main floor. Musicians were entertaining the crowd, and I recognized the piece as apparently the canary. They knocked along with it, and just as the piece reached a loud moment fraught with crashing drums and blaming horns, the canary threw a small blade at the pouch. The pouch, ex- the pouch exploded with a burst of fire. The burst of fire, the force directed inward, and the door collapsed, blown from its higgs with a great clatter. The canary looked around, waiting, and when they were waiting, and when they were satisfied that no one had heard the noise over the music up above, they went forward. I followed after a few moments, and from my view in the shadows, I saw they had entered a sort of ritual chamber. I marked it as elven in origin, with tall arcs across the ceiling, and one of these elven mirrors on the wall, flanked by statues of Hala and dragons. In the middle of the room, sitting on a satin pillow that rested upon a stone pedestal, wrought with protective rune work, was the red idol. Just as the canary entered the room, so did another group. Three of them were human, two of them mages, both wearing what I recognized as the outfits of Tevinter's magisters, though they had shed though they had shed their mask and held their glowing staffs with the subtle confidence of operatives rather than rogues. The other humans held a bow, and the arrow she had knocked crackled with enchantments at the head. The last member of the Tevinter team was a golem, ident- identical to the golems that had guarded the castle entrance, as far as I could tell, save it seemed to the to have intelligence in its eyes, and it stood in ready to defend the humans. For a moment of two groups assassinated one another. Then each group spread out of the radiate their weapons. This is not mere trinket, said the female Kunari, who must have led the Benhathras. It is being searched for by a dangerous mage who styles himself the Dreadwolf. He threatens both of our people. Leave, and we will have no quarrel with you tonight. Why don't you leave? Asked one of the mages. Or do you honestly think you know how to harness this idol's magic better than the mages of Tevinter? We know of the elven upstart. He is a mage named Solus, and his ritual has already started to affect the fate. We cannot risk him acquiring this idol and finishing what he had begun. Neither can we, replied the Canary. They said they were after these, uh, but it was more of the same. They raised their weapons. Then the Illuvian, the elven mirror of the wall, sprang to life, and as both sides turned, a figure stepped out in elven golden armor, with a wolf pelt across his shoulder. He looked at him, and his face as empty of all expression as one of the Sicari, and the Ben Hastras turned to flee, screaming in panic. The elf's eyes blazed once with glowing eyes, and everyone stopped petrified by strange and terrible magic. Even the golem was living stone no more, its crystals dead and grey, and its rose where it stood. The elf walked unhurriedly to the pedestal. Slowly, he lifted the red lyrium idol from the pillow where it rested. He whispered something. He something as he picked it up, tracing his gloved fingers gently across the crowned figure who comforted the other. B- but I could not, but I could not make out the words, for I fear they were elven. Then he turned back to his mirror and stepped to its shimmering border. A moment later, it was dead, a dark and dark again. That it's all know of that is all know that is all I know of the Dreadwolf. I'm afraid the idle journey is now complete, and it has found its master. He will destroy anyone in his way without regret or hesitation, and whatever he intends, I do not believe we can stop it. The bard stopped there, sighing. That's a good story, the assassin said, cutting into the silence. But I'd rather hear the truth. The bard turned to him. I beg your pardon, monsieur? Niffing a spy that I believe, said the assassin. But sailing a Banhathras team that was specifically on the lookout for obsession, I've come up against the horns a few times. No way to get close. No way to get close. Opposition. Um, no way to get close enough to overhear them without them knowing. I have heard many things of Tevinter Sikari. I have heard many things about Tevinter Sikari, the Mortalitas added, but I have never heard them called cowards or traitors. Most of them from slaves' families, and those families are kept safe as both promise and threat, ensuring the Sikari never flinch from their duties. You say that they broke and ran as soon as a single elf walked through a mirror. I know they would have attacked. Charter signed. There are many liars at this table, she said. Some more talented than others, I asked. I asked for myself. The assassin turned to her. Why are you... What are you on about? Please, the please, the Mortalitasi, said the Mortalitasi with a sniff. You expect us to believe that a group of ex-Templars found your safe house and came in such number that you had no choice but surrender your great treasure? You accept us to believe that a stray arrow flew through the window and struck the sleeping elf who lay on the ground? The assassin stood. Oh, that's how it is, huh? His blade came out of the staff, glittering in firelight. Then I suppose we should ask how the expert mage like yourself didn't figure out that she was helping in blood magic ritual. You and your friends knew that the whole time you let him kill his slaves because you wanted to see what he could do. The Mortalitasi held out a hand and her staff leaped in his grasp. crackling with purple fire. The eyes of the silver figures holding the amethyst crystal began to glow and glow a handful of tiny pinpricks of glittering light. There were no Templars. You sold the idol to the Tevinter contact yourself, getting more money than the elf could offer. And then, when your men were lying in their sleep and arrows came through the windows, you slit the elf's throat yourself to ensure he could not finger you as the one to blame. This doesn't grin it. Not bad. Not bad, tell me. Not bad. Tell me, I'm just a dwarf and I don't know much about spirits. What would make those corpses fight for you? Would blood magic bind them to do it? How did your friend die again? You said she took a blow from behind? I'm just asking because I recall that the big dog in your story said that you were dead if you ever bound spirits. The Mortalitasi went even paler than usual. Charter, you have wasted my time. I fear I have ended your time. Charter, I fear you have wasted my time. I fear I have ended your time. Charter shut her eyes and took a slow sip of tea. And then she quietly repeated, I asked for my life. I'm not killing you, elf. I'm not killing you, elf. That's I need to get something useful out of this. Word is that I saw that blasted elf every day in Haven. You must know something, even if you were stupid enough not to see it at the time. I am asking you, Charter said. And if you think I regret not seeing Solus for what he was when he served the Inquisition, you are correct. I was outplayed. I will regret it forever, and I will never make the same mistake again. Can you be certain? How can you be certain, mademoiselle? The bard asked. She looked across the table at him, at his face, and his face was still hidden under his dragon mask. By by observing several small tells and 3 large ones, she said finally, keeping her voice steady. First, that few Orlesian bards would learn to speak the Conari tongue, but not Elven, and few of those who do not speak Elven would know the Elven word Illuvian, for the mirrors that let the ancient elves travel from place to place. Second, that the executor has not moved since you touched his hand while he and the assassin argued. And third, that you never drank your tea. The assassin and the Mortalitasi turned. I know you hate the taste of tea, Charter said softly. It was a joke around Skyhold. Why would you order it? Because it was joke around Skyhold. The man in the dragon the man in the dragon mask sounded tired because it was a joke around Skyhold. The man in the dragon mask sounded tired. I was certain this costume would suffice, so I did everything that Dreadwolf would not, except, it seems, bring myself to drink tea. I ask for my life, Charter said the third time. The assassin and the Mortalitasi both sprang, and the eyes behind the dragon mask blazed with a fiercely light for a moment. Allah Samala, he said, and his Orlesian accent was gone, replaced by the rolling lilt that was almost Danish, but not quite. I grant it to you. The assassin and the Mortalitazi were still where they stood, their skin and clothes suddenly the grey of dead, dull stone. The man in the mask stood, sighed, and took the staff from the Mortalitazi's statue hand. He took the staring stick from just below the gem and had and at the head of the staff, drew it out and held it for a moment. You are free, he murmured. The staring stick glowed and for a moment in his hands, and then a wisp of energy flickered away. He turned back to Charter and removed the mask, tossing it carelessly to the table. And she saw his face again, just as she had seen it for all those months at Haven and Skyhold. Never suspect anything. An elf bold, the golden locks have been part of the mask, an oval face with full lips, and a tiny scar on his brow, pointed ears, previously hidden under the mask and wing. Excellent work on the executor, Charter said. You purified him, but not his ropes. I would caution you in dealing with those across the sea, he said. They are dangerous. More dangerous than the elf. More dangerous than the elf that in the world, Charter asked, and was rewarded with a twitch of lips that acknowledged the point. Why did you come? Why you personally? I wished to know what you all knew, he said, gesturing at the table. There are many of you, and you are not fools. As for me, coming in person, the Inquisition was involved. He returned to his seat. Why did you come? She shook her head helplessly. Because you told the Inquisitor that you were going to destroy this world, she said. Did you expect us not to try to stop you? He sighed. It was a moment of weakness. I told myself that it was because you all deserve to know, to live a few years in peace before my ritual was complete, before this world ended. Then perhaps we are not the only ones you lied to, Charter said. You do not have to do this. His look pinned her. I have no choice. I am doing I am doing what I'm doing will save this world. And those like you, the elves, who still remain, may even find it better when it's done. Charter considered lying, but then she thought of Tessa, with her quite quick smile and strong hands. There are those I care for who would not. He smiled sadly. I know that well. I am not a god, Charter. I am prideful, hot-headed, and foolish, and I am doing what I must. When you report back to the Inquisitor, his voice faltered. Say I'm sorry. He walked away, and Charter remained still until the curtain closed behind him. Then she drank the rest of her tea, her fingers shaking a little. She looked at her dragon mask on the table, prideful, hot-headed, foolish, doing what he must, sympathetic to elves, said that he was sorry. The red lyrium idol was of a coward figure, com- comforting another. It was not much, but it was more than she had known before, she thought. Pulling a small notebook from one pocket, she began to write her report. After all, the Dreadwolf wasn't going to stop himself.